I was standing in my bedroom holding a card I'd picked out the night before when I heard my son say something that didn't just catch my attention. It changed how I saw the last 25 years of my life. "She can sit in the back. My real mother is here today." He said it calm, casual, like he was deciding where to park the car. I didn't move at first, just stood there, the card still in my hand, my name already written inside it. "Proud of you always." I had practiced that line in my head more than I cared to admit. I wasn't supposed to hear that, but I did. And once you hear something like that, you don't unhear it. I looked at myself in the mirror. Same face, same woman. Nothing looked different, but something was off, like I had been standing in the wrong place my whole life and just now realized it. I didn't walk into the room. I didn't ask him what he meant. I didn't say a word. I just closed the card, set it down, and kept getting ready. Because the truth is, part of me already knew. My name is Vanessa Brooks. I'm 57 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Been in the same house for over 20 years. East Side, quiet street, nothing fancy. But it's mine. Every payment, every repair, every bill mine. And Derek? Derek has been my son since he was 8 years old. Not by blood, by choice, by paperwork, by everything that actually matters. His mother, Tanya, lost custody back when he was still in elementary school. Drugs instability, court orders. The usual story you hear and hope doesn't land in your lap. It did. I remember sitting in that courtroom in Mecklenburg County listening to a judge explain what guardianship meant, then what adoption meant, then asking me if I was prepared for all of it. I said yes. I didn't hesitate, not even for a second. Derek didn't either. He held my hand the whole time, didn't say much, just held on. From that day on, I was it. No backup, no shared responsibility, no weekend handoffs, just me. I packed his lunches. I signed every school form. I sat through parent-teacher meetings where they'd look at me, then look at the last name and get confused for about 2 seconds before I explained it. After a while, I stopped explaining. He called me mom. That was enough. I worked 2 jobs for a while, one full-time in HR at a logistics company, one part-time on weekends. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. Kids are expensive. Turns out they don't come with a discount just because they're not biologically yours. I bought the house when he was in middle school. Fixed rate mortgage, nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, needed some work. I handled that too. Every step he took forward, I was somewhere behind it holding things up. And Derek, he wasn't a bad kid. He just needed more time than most people. High school took effort. Community college took multiple tries. He'd start something, lose interest, pivot, try again. I stayed patient. You don't quit on your kid just because they don't move at your pace. When he got older, things didn't magically fall into place. He bounced between jobs. Tried a small business. That didn't work. Credit cards stacked up, about $18,000 at one point. I know that number because I paid it. We refinanced the house through PNC to ease the pressure, lower the monthly load, give him breathing room. And when his marriage fell apart, guess where he came back to? My house. His room was still there. I never turned it into anything else. Maybe that says more about me than I'd like to admit. But I told myself that's what mothers do. You keep the door open. Even when they keep walking out of it, things settled into a rhythm again. Not perfect, but stable. He had a place to stay, a roof over his head, food in the fridge that he didn't have to think about. I handled most of it, quietly. I got used to that. Then Tanya came back, just showed up one day. No warning, no build-up. Just a phone call Derek took in the kitchen that went a little too quiet. Then a name I hadn't heard in years. At first I thought I misheard it. I didn't. She said she'd been clean for a while, working part-time at a salon up on North Tryon, trying to get her life together. That's what she said. And Derek, he believed her. Quickly, faster than I expected, faster than I was ready for. I didn't say much, didn't push back. I figured, okay, people change. Maybe this is her chance to do things right. I wasn't competing, I didn't need to. At least, that's what I told myself. She started coming around more often, sitting at the table like she'd always had a seat there, talking about things she missed, filling in gaps that didn't belong to her anymore. Derek listened, really listened, and I noticed something I hadn't seen before. He wasn't just reconnecting with her. He was rearranging his life to make space for her. And somehow, that space came from mine. I set the card down on the dresser and smoothed the front of my jacket like fixing that would fix anything else. I've been called a lot of things in my life. Employee, manager, homeowner. But the one I held onto the most was mom. That didn't start the day Derek was born. It started the day everything in his life fell apart. He was 8 years old when I first sat across from him in that courthouse, Mecklenburg County. Small room, fluorescent lights that made everything look colder than it already was. He didn't cry, didn't act out. He just sat there quiet, holding onto a plastic toy car like it was the only thing he could count on. The judge talked, lawyers talked, words like custody, placement, stability, all very official, all very detached. Then they asked me if I understood what adoption meant. I said yes. They asked if I was prepared to take full responsibility. I said yes again. No hesitation, no pause. Because by then it already felt decided. Derek didn't look at the judge, he looked at me the whole time. When it was over, they handed me papers, legal documents, signatures, dates, everything neat and official. But what I remember most is the walk out of that building. He didn't say anything, just reached for my hand and held it. That was it. No big speech, no dramatic moment. Just a kid deciding, this is where I belong. And I decided the same. From that day on, it was just us. No shared holidays, no weekend visits, no second parent checking in. Tanya was gone. Not inconsistent, not figuring things out. Gone. I didn't spend time explaining that to Derek. Kids understand more than people think. He knew. So I focused on what was in front of me. School mornings, packing lunches, making sure homework got done, sitting at the kitchen table after work, going over math problems I hadn't looked at in 20 years. I learned fast because I had to. Money was tight back then. I won't pretend it wasn't. I was working full-time in HR, then picking up extra hours wherever I could. Weekends didn't really feel like weekends. They felt like catch up on everything you didn't get to during the week. But Derek never went without. He had clothes, he had food, he had a place that stayed the same no matter what was going on outside. That mattered more than anything. There were nights I'd come home so tired I didn't even remember sitting down. Just waking up in the same chair I'd been in TV, still on low, knowing I had to do it all again the next day. And I did. Because that's what you sign up for when you say yes in a courtroom like that. Not just the good parts, all of it. Derek wasn't a difficult kid, but he wasn't easy either. He needed patience, more than most. School didn't come naturally to him. Focus wasn't his strength. He'd start things strong, then lose steam. I got a lot of phone calls from teachers over the years. Nothing serious, just concern. I showed up every time, sat in those small chairs listening to people explain where he was falling short. Then I'd go home, sit him down, and we'd work through it together. No yelling, no threats. Just consistency. That's what I gave him. Consistency. When he got older, things didn't suddenly click into place. Some people think once a kid turns 18, everything lines up. It doesn't. He tried community college, Central Piedmont, took classes, dropped some, picked up others, changed direction more times than I could count. I kept paying tuition. He tried working different jobs. Some lasted, some didn't. I kept the lights on. When he decided to start a small business, I didn't stop him. I wanted him to try, to build something for himself. When it failed, and it did, I helped clean up the mess. $18,000 in credit card debt doesn't disappear on its own. I know that because I was the one making the calls, talking to banks, setting up payment plans, watching my own accounts shift to cover his mistakes. We refinanced the house through PNC to make it manageable, lower the monthly burden, stretch things out so we could breathe again. I didn't complain. I didn't hold it over his head. I told myself it was temporary, that once he found his footing, things would balance out. When his marriage ended, I didn't ask too many questions. People go through things, relationships fall apart, it happens. What mattered to me was that he had somewhere to land. So he came back. Same house, same room, same kitchen table. I didn't turn his room into an office or a guest room or anything else. I left it as it was. Looking back, maybe that was my first mistake. Not because I shouldn't have helped him, but because I never adjusted the way I saw him. To me, he was still the 8-year-old boy holding my hand outside that courthouse. And I treated him that way. I kept things steady, predictable, safe. Bills paid, groceries stocked, utilities handled before he even thought about them. He didn't have to worry about much. I handled most of it, quietly. That became the pattern. And patterns are hard to see when you're inside them, especially when you're the one holding everything together. I didn't notice how much he depended on me. Or maybe I did. I just didn't want to admit what that meant. I opened the kitchen cabinet and stared at the same set of plates I'd been using for years, realizing I couldn't remember the last time Derek had asked how any of this stayed stocked. It wasn't one big sacrifice. That's the thing people don't get. It was 1,000 small ones. Bills that got paid before I bought anything for myself, repairs I handled without mentioning, groceries that just showed up in the fridge like they grew there. Derek never had to think about it. And that was the point. You don't raise a child by reminding them what you're doing for them. You make it normal. You make stability feel like the default. So I did. Every month, same routine. Mortgage first, utilities next, insurance, then everything else. I had it down to a system. Numbers lined up. Nothing late, nothing missed. Even when things got tight. There was a stretch a few years back where I was working full time and still picking up extra hours just to stay ahead. Not because we were falling apart, but because I refused to let us get there. I remember one winter when the heat went out. Middle of January. Cold enough to see your breath if you stood near the window too long. I called the repair company. They gave me a number that made me pause for exactly 3 seconds. Then I said yes, because that's what you do when someone depends on you. You don't debate comfort, you fix it. Derek didn't even know how close that came to being a bigger problem, and I didn't tell him. That was the pattern. He moved through life, and I handled the edges, smoothed things out before they became obstacles. When he started driving, I made sure the car was insured. When he missed a payment on something, I stepped in before it hit collections. When he needed a little more time, I bought it for him. Time, money, energy, it all blends together after a while. You stop keeping track. Or at least, you tell yourself you do. That business he tried to start, I didn't believe in it at first. Not because it was a bad idea. Because I could see he wasn't ready. But I didn't shut it down. I gave him room. Supported him the way I always had. When it failed, and it failed fast, it left behind more than just disappointment. It left bills, real ones, numbers that didn't go away just because the idea didn't work. I sat at the same kitchen table going through statements line by line, figuring out what could be negotiated, what had to be paid, what couldn't wait. $18,000. That's not a number you ignore. So I handled it, set up payment plans, called credit companies, moved money around in ways that only make sense when you're trying to keep everything from tipping over. Derek said thank you, I remember that. But it was quick, casual. Like I had just helped him move a couch. Not like I had just rearranged my entire financial life to fix something he couldn't. I didn't take it personally. At least not then. Because in my mind, this was temporary. He just needed a little more time. That's what I kept telling myself. A little more time and he'll get it together. A little more time and he won't need me like this. A little more time and I can step back. But time has a way of stretching when no one's forcing it to end. And I wasn't forcing anything. When we refinanced the house, it was supposed to be a smart move, lower interest, more flexibility, less pressure month to month. That's how I justified it. The truth was I was creating more room for him, more breathing space, more chances. I signed the paperwork, sat across from a loan officer who walked me through every detail like I hadn't already made up my mind before I walked in. Everything was in my name, always had been. That part never changed, but the purpose behind it did. The house wasn't just where we lived anymore. It became the safety net, and Derek lived like it would always be there. No urgency, no real pressure to stand on his own, not fully. Because why would there be? Every time things got close to uncomfortable, I stepped in. Every time a decision could have forced growth, I softened the landing. Not because I didn't believe in him, because I believed in him too much. There's a difference. You think you're helping someone move forward, but sometimes you're just making it easier for them to stay exactly where they are. I didn't see it clearly back then. Or maybe I did and chose not to, because facing that would have meant changing something. And change is harder when you've built your whole identity around being the one who holds everything together. So I kept going. Same routine, same system, same quiet way of making sure nothing fell apart. Until something did. Not all at once, not loud, just shifted. And once it started, didn't stop. I heard her laugh from the kitchen before I ever saw her face. It was light, easy, like she'd always belonged there. I was standing in the hallway holding a grocery bag key still in my hand when Derek said her name out loud for the first time in years. Tanya. He didn't say it carefully, didn't hesitate, just said it like it was normal again. I stepped into the kitchen and there she was, sitting at my table, one leg crossed over the other, a cup of coffee in her hand like she'd poured it herself. She looked different, older of course, cleaner, put together in a way that said she had figured some things out or at least learned how to present it that way. She smiled when she saw me. You must be Vanessa. Not thank you. Not I appreciate what you did. Just acknowledgement. Like I was a name she had heard before. I set the groceries down slowly. Took a second before I responded. That would be me. Derek stood there watching both of us like he was waiting to see how this would go. Tanya nodded, took a sip of coffee. I've been wanting to meet you properly, she said. After everything. After everything. That phrase sat in the air for a second longer than it should have. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need clarification. We all knew what everything was. I pulled out a chair and sat down, not across from her, slightly to the side. I didn't feel like giving her a direct line. How long you been back in Charlotte? I asked. Few months, she said. Been keeping things low, getting stable, working over on North Tryon. She said it like she was giving a report, clean, simple, no details offered unless asked. Derek jumped in before I could say anything else. She's doing good now, been clean for a while. He said it quickly, almost defensive. I nodded once. That's good. And I meant it. Or at least I wanted to. Because I wasn't interested in fighting her. Not about the past, not about what she did or didn't do. That time was gone. What mattered was what she was doing now. And more importantly, what Derek was doing now. At first, it didn't seem like much changed. She came by once or twice a week. Then more, then it just became a regular thing. She'd sit at the table, talk about little things, work, people she knew, stories from before. Stories Derek didn't remember. He listened anyway. That was the part I noticed first. Not what she said. How he listened, leaning forward, asking questions, filling in gaps. He wasn't just hearing her. He was trying to build something that never got the chance to exist. I stayed quiet most of those times. Not because I didn't have anything to say, because I was watching, trying to understand where I fit in all of it. One night she stayed for dinner. I didn't plan it, it just happened. I cooked like I always do. Nothing special. Chicken rice, green beans. Same routine. She complimented the food. This is good, she said. You always cook like this. I gave a small nod. Most nights. She smiled, looked at Derek. You were eating good all these years. It sounded like a compliment, but something about it didn't sit right. Like she was observing, not appreciating. Derek laughed a little. Yeah, she keeps everything together. Keeps everything together. That's how he said it. Not raised me, not took care of me, just keeps things running. Like I was part of the system, not the reason it existed. I didn't react, just kept eating. The conversation moved on. Work plans, small talk. But I felt something shift. Not loud, not obvious. Just a small adjustment in the way things were arranged. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Over the next few weeks, it got clearer. Tanya started showing up to things she had never been part of. Doctor appointments, errands, random stops during the day. Derek started including her in decisions he used to talk through with me. Simple things at first, then bigger ones. I wasn't pushed out directly. I was moved, gradually, quietly, like furniture that still looks the same, just not in the same place anymore. One afternoon, I walked into the living room and heard them talking. They didn't know I was there. Tanya was telling a story about when Derek was a baby. Something about how he used to cry unless she held him a certain way. Derek laughed. I don't remember any of that. Of course you don't, she said. But I do, I was there. I stood there for a second, because that line, it hit different. I was there, not a lie, but not the full truth either. Because she was there, and then she wasn't. And someone else stepped in, and stayed. I walked into the room like I hadn't heard anything. Neither of them noticed. That's when I realized something I hadn't fully admitted to myself yet. This wasn't just about her coming back. It was about him making space for her. And that space was coming from somewhere. I watched him straighten his shirt in the hallway, fixing the collar like this was just another normal day. It wasn't. This was the day he finally finished something he started. Central Piedmont Community College. HVAC certification. It took him longer than expected, a few stops and restarts, but he got there. And I was proud. I didn't say it out loud much, never been that kind of person, but I felt it, heavy, real. I had picked out a simple outfit that morning, nothing flashy, just something clean, respectful, something that said I showed up, because that's what I've always done, show up. We drove separately. That part wasn't unusual. He said he needed to meet someone before. I didn't ask who. The campus was busy when I got there. Families walking in, people holding flowers, taking pictures in front of signs with school logos. You could feel it. That kind of energy that only comes when something actually matters to people. I walked toward the auditorium, holding the envelope I had written his name on. Derek. Just that. No long message, no speech. I figured I'd hand it to him after. Keep it simple. Inside, there were rows of chairs already filling up. I spotted a section toward the middle and started walking that way. Then someone tapped my arm. It was Derek. He had that same calm look on his face, the one he uses when he's already made a decision. Hey, he said, you mind sitting a few rows back? Just like that. No explanation. I looked at him, not confused, just waiting for what I asked. He nodded slightly toward the front rows. I saved those seats. Saved. I followed his eyes. And there she was, Tanya, sitting in the front row like she had been there the whole time. Sitting straight, smiling, looking around like she recognized the moment, like it belonged to her. I looked back at Derek. He didn't look uncomfortable, didn't hesitate. My real mother is here, he said. I want her up front. There it was, not overheard, not assumed, said directly, clean, like a fact. I held his gaze for a second longer than I expected to. Then I nodded. Okay. That's all I said. No scene, no questions, no correction. Just okay. I turned and walked back, row by row. Each step felt slower than the last. I found a seat near the back, not the last row, but close enough that nobody would look twice at me. I sat down, placed the envelope in my lap, folded my hands over it. From where I was sitting, I could see the stage clearly, and I could see the back of his head. And next to him, hers. They looked like a family. That's what stood out the most. Not the words, not the seat. The picture. If someone walked in late, they'd think that's how it always was. Mother in the front, son beside her. Proud moment. Complete story. I watched people stand, wave, call out names. Phones up, cameras flashing. I stayed seated. When his name was called, I stood like everyone else. Clapped. Not loud, not soft, just enough. He walked across the stage, shook hands, took his certificate. Didn't look toward the back. Didn't need to. After the ceremony, people started moving around, hugging, taking pictures. That part always gets crowded. I stayed where I was for a moment, let the rush pass. Then I walked down. I saw them before they saw me. Tanya had her arm around him, pulling him in for a photo, smiling wide, saying something I couldn't hear. He looked relaxed, comfortable. I stepped closer. He noticed me then. Hey, he said. Just hey. I handed him the envelope. Congratulations, I said. He took it. Didn't open it, just held it. Thanks. That was it. No hug. No pause. Tanya looked at me, gave a polite smile. Proud moment, she said. I nodded. Yes, it is. There was a short silence, not awkward, just empty. Then Derek checked his phone. We're heading out in a bit, he said. Got dinner plans. I waited. He didn't add anything. Okay, I said. Just immediate family, he added. That part came a second later, like an afterthought, or maybe a clarification. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't need to. I looked at both of them. Then I nodded again. Enjoy, I said. And I walked past them. Not fast, not slow. Just steady. Out of the building, into the parking lot. People were still celebrating, laughing, taking pictures, talking about what came next. I unlocked my car, sat inside, and closed the door. For a second, I just sat there, hands on the wheel. The envelope was gone. The seat was empty, and the picture in my head was still clear. Front row, back row, two mothers. One of them finally in the right place, and the other one exactly where she had been put. I rested my hands on the steering wheel and didn't start the engine right away. People were still walking past my car, laughing, taking pictures, talking about dinner plans. I could hear it through the glass, muffled but clear enough. I didn't cry. That's the part most people expect. But I didn't feel like crying. I felt still, like everything had finally lined up in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. I sat there long enough for the parking lot to start emptying, long enough for the noise to fade into something quieter. Then I started the car. The drive home didn't feel long. It didn't feel short either. It just happened. Red lights, turns, familiar streets. The same route I've taken for years. Nothing about the road had changed, but I wasn't driving the same way. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly like it always did. Same front porch, same mailbox, same windows I've cleaned more times than I can count. I sat there for a second before getting out. Then I walked inside. Quiet. That's the first thing I noticed. No TV, no music, no voices. Just quiet. I set my keys on the counter and walked into the kitchen. The same kitchen I've stood in thousands of times. Cooked meals, paid bills, made decisions. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Not because I was tired. Because I needed to think. Not about what just happened. About what it meant. There's a difference. Anyone can replay a moment. Go over it again and again, picking apart every word. But that's not what I was doing. I was looking at the pattern. And once you see the pattern, then you can't pretend it's a one-time thing. That sentence he said, my real mother, that didn't come out of nowhere. That came from somewhere that had been building. And I let it build. That was the part I couldn't ignore. I leaned back in the chair and looked around the kitchen. Every cabinet, every appliance, every detail in that room had a story. I knew where everything came from. Not because I bought it all at once. Because I built it over time. Piece by piece. Paycheck by paycheck. Decision by decision. That house didn't just happen. I made it happen. And I realized something sitting there. I had spent years making sure Derek never had to worry about losing anything. The house, the lights, the food, the stability. I carried all of it. Quietly. Consistently. Without asking for anything back. Not even recognition. But recognition matters. More than people like to admit. Not in a loud way. In a basic way. Like being seen. And in that moment, I had to be honest with myself. I wasn't being seen. Not fully. Not honestly. I stood up and walked into the living room. Same couch, same coffee table, Same space Derek had been using like it was permanent. Because to him it was. I walked past his room. Door open, bed unmade, clothes on the floor. Nothing out of place for him. Everything out of place for me. I stepped inside for a second and looked around. It didn't feel like a temporary space. It felt settled. Like he had no intention of going anywhere. Why would he? Everything he needed was already here. Handled. Covered. I turned and walked back out. Down the hallway. Back into the kitchen. I picked up my phone. Set it back down. Picked it up again. Not because I was unsure. Because I was making a decision. And decision like that, you don't rush. You let them settle. You make sure they're real. Because once you act on them, there's no undoing it. I walked over to the sink, turned on the water, then turned it off. Didn't need it. Just needed something to break the stillness. I thought about the courtroom. That day I said yes. The way he held my hand. The way I never questioned what that meant. I thought about every time I stepped in. Every bill I paid. Every time I made things easier for him. And then I thought about that sentence again. My real mother. Not said in anger. Not said in confusion. Said like it had always been true. That's when it became clear. This wasn't about him choosing her. It was about me understanding my place and deciding what to do with that. I picked up my phone again. This time I didn't set it down. I scrolled through my contacts, stopped on one name, then another, not calling yet, just preparing. Because if I was going to do something, it had to be clean. No emotion, no hesitation, just action. I sat back down at the table, phone in my hand. And for the first time that day, I wasn't thinking about what I lost. I was thinking about what I was about to take back. I tapped the contact name and held the phone to my ear before I could second guess it. Denise, it's Vanessa. She answered like she always does, straight to the point. Hey, Vanessa, everything okay? I didn't pause. I need to list my house. Silence. Not long. Just enough to register that this wasn't a casual call. Okay, she said, you serious? Yes. Another short pause. All right. I can come by tomorrow. We'll take a look, talk numbers. Tomorrow works. I hung up before the conversation could turn into something emotional. Because this wasn't emotional anymore. This was business. I sat there for a moment, phone still in my hand, and scrolled again. PNC Bank. I pressed call. A few rings, a representative picked up. Thank you for calling PNC. How can I assist you today? I need to review and cancel all automatic transfers linked to my account. Of course. Can I verify your information? I gave it. Clear, steady. They pulled up my account. Yes, I see several recurring transfers here. Would you like to cancel all of them? All of them. There was a slight hesitation on the other end. Just to confirm, this includes transfers to a secondary checking account. Yes, that account appears to be. I know what it is. Another pause. Understood. I'll process that for you now. Clicking sounds, keyboard taps. Those transfers will stop effective immediately. Good. Is there anything else I can assist you with today? No. I ended the call. No explanation needed. Next call. Insurance. I waited through the automated system, pressed the right numbers, got to a person. I need to update my policy, I said. Remove a listed driver. Name, Derek Brooks. All right, give me one moment. I stood up while they processed it, walked over to the window, looked out at the same street I've looked at for years. Kids riding bikes, cars passing, nothing dramatic. Just life moving like it always does. Okay, he's been removed from the policy, the agent said. Effective today. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Call ended. I went down the list. Utilities, internet, anything tied to him that I had quietly taken care of over time. Every call the same. Simple, direct, no explanations, no emotion, just corrections. By the time I finished, the house felt different. Not physically, but the structure of it had shifted. All the invisible lines that connected him to this place, I had started pulling them back. One by one, I walked into the hallway and looked at his room again. Same mess, same clothes on the floor, same sense that nothing needed to change. That part was about to be corrected too. The next day, Denise showed up right on time. Clipboard, measuring tape, the same practical energy she's always had. She walked through the house, taking notes. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, she said. Good condition. Market's still strong around here. I nodded. She stopped in the kitchen. You fixing anything before listing? No. She looked at me for a second. You trying to move fast? Yes. All right. She wrote something down. University City area has been moving quick. You price it right, you'll get offers within a week. Maybe sooner. That's fine. She glanced at me again. You sure about this, Vanessa? I met her eyes. I'm sure. She didn't push, just nodded and kept working. We sat down at the table and went over numbers. List price, estimated closing timeline. Everything clean, clear. I signed the listing agreement without hesitation. That same table, different decision. By that afternoon, the house was officially on the market. Photos scheduled, online listing prepared, everything moving faster than it ever had before. I didn't tell Derek. There was no reason to. That night I made dinner like I always do. Cooked enough for two. Set the plates out. Then put one back. A few hours later I heard the front door open. Voices, his and hers, laughing. They walked into the kitchen like nothing had changed. Like the day had gone exactly the way they expected it to. Derek looked at me. You ate already? Yes. He nodded. Didn't ask anything else. Tanya leaned against the counter. That ceremony was nice, she said. You raised a good man. I looked at her, then at him, then back at her. He did all right, I said. That's all. No correction, no ownership, just acknowledgement. They kept talking, planning things, small conversations about what came next. I listened for a minute, then I stood up, rinsed my plate, and walked past them. No one stopped me. No one asked where I was going, because in that moment, they didn't need me to. And for the first time, I didn't need to stay. I was halfway through my coffee when my phone started ringing, and I already knew who it was before I looked at the screen. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. What did you do? No hello, no pause. Just that. I took a sip of coffee before responding. What are you talking about? Don't play with me, Derek snapped. I just got to the house. There's people in there. They say they own it. I leaned back in the chair. That's because they do. Silence, not confusion, not right away, just silence. What do you mean they do? He said, finally, a voice lower now, trying to catch up to something he didn't expect to hear. I sold it. You sold? He stopped. I could hear him breathing through the phone. You sold the house. Yes. When? A couple days ago. A couple. He let out a short laugh, but there was nothing funny in it. You're joking, right? I'm not. Another pause, longer this time. Then it hit him. You can't do that. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I didn't have an answer, because I wanted him to hear his own words. You can't just sell the house like that, he said again, louder now. I live there. I set the cup down. The house is in my name, Derek. That doesn't matter. It does. No, it doesn't. I've been living there. I've been staying there, I corrected. He stopped again. You've been staying there, I said. There's a difference. His voice changed after that, less loud, more sharp. So what, you just decided to throw me out? I didn't throw you out. You sold the house, he snapped. What do you think that does? It ends an arrangement that shouldn't have lasted this long. Another silence, this one heavier. What is this really about, he asked. I didn't hesitate. You already know. No, I don't. Yes, you do. He let out a breath like he was trying to reset the conversation. If this is about the ceremony, it's not about the ceremony, I said. And that was true. Not just the ceremony. You told me to sit in the back, I continued. That wasn't about a seat. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. I was just trying to... You were making a choice, I said. He didn't interrupt this time. You made it clear, I continued. You didn't hesitate. You didn't explain. You just said it. I let that sit for a second. Then I added and I listened. He was quiet. Then softer. Now you're overreacting. I almost smiled at that. Am I? Yes, he said, a little more confident now. It was one moment. You're blowing it out of proportion. One moment doesn't come out of nowhere, I said. It comes from somewhere. That doesn't mean... It means I finally paid attention. Silence again. Then a different tone. Less defensive, more uncertain. So what am I supposed to do now, he asked. There it was. The question. Not about what happened. About what comes next. I don't know, I said. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. You expect me to just figure it out. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. Yes. He let out a frustrated breath. You can't just leave me like this. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't leave you, I said. I stopped carrying you. That landed. I could hear it. The shift. Not anger this time. Something else. Where am I supposed to go? He asked again. That's something you should have thought about, I said, before you decided who your mother was. He didn't respond right away. I could hear noise in the background, voices, probably the new owners, maybe neighbors. Reality setting in. This isn't right, he said finally. It's accurate. That's not the same thing. It is. He started to say something else, then stopped. I didn't fill the silence. I let him sit in it. The same way I had. You really did this, he said, quieter now. Yes. And that's it. That's it. Another long pause. Then Tanya says you're being dramatic. I let out a small breath through my nose. I'm sure she does. You didn't even talk to me first. I listened to you first. That was the last thing I said before I ended the call. I set the phone down on the table and looked at it for a second. No shaking hands, no second thoughts. Just quiet. A different kind of quiet than before. Not empty. Clear. I stood up, walked over to the sink, and rinsed out my cup. Water running, simple sound. Normal. Outside the day kept moving. Cars passing. People walking. Nothing about the world had changed. Just the structure of one life and the people inside it. I want to step out of Vanessa's story for a moment and talk to you directly, because what you just heard isn't rare, it's not extreme, it's not even unusual. It just doesn't get talked about out loud. Stories like this sit quietly inside families for years. People adjust, they tolerate, they explain things away, and over time, what should feel wrong starts to feel normal. That's what makes this kind of situation dangerous. Vanessa didn't wake up one day and suddenly lose her place in her own family. That didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, in small moments, in overlooked details, in choices that didn't seem big at the time. That's how most real family stories unfold. Not with one loud betrayal, but with a pattern. And the hardest part about patterns is this. When you're inside them, you don't see them clearly. You just keep doing what you've always done, believing it will eventually be enough. Vanessa believed that. She believed that consistency would speak for itself, that showing up year after year would secure her place, that love given long enough would be recognized without needing to be named. A lot of people believe that. But here's the truth, and it's not a comfortable one. Consistency without boundaries doesn't earn respect. It creates dependence, and dependence doesn't always come with appreciation. Sometimes it comes with expectation. Derek didn't wake up one day and decide to disrespect Vanessa. He adjusted to a system where everything was handled for him, where support was constant, where consequences were softened. Over time, that became his baseline, and when his biological mother came back, he didn't replace Vanessa out of cruelty. He made space for someone new without realizing what he was pushing out. That's what makes this situation complicated, because not every betrayal is intentional. But that doesn't make it harmless. There's a difference between understanding someone's behavior and accepting the impact of it. Vanessa didn't yell, she didn't argue, she didn't create a scene. And that's important, because a lot of people think power comes from being louder, from proving a point, from forcing someone to acknowledge what they did. But real power doesn't look like that. Real power is quiet. It's the ability to step back and see the situation clearly, to stop reacting emotionally and start responding intentionally. Vanessa didn't sell the house to hurt Derek. She sold it because she finally understood her role in the dynamic. She realized that she wasn't being valued, she was being relied on. And those are not the same thing. That's a lesson a lot of people need to hear. If your presence in someone's life is only meaningful when you're providing something, money, stability, support, solutions, then you need to ask yourself a hard question. If you stopped providing, would you still belong? That's not about being bitter, it's about being honest. And honesty, especially in family situations, is something people avoid more than anything else. Because once you see the truth, you have to decide what to do with it. Vanessa made a decision most people are afraid to make. She changed the structure, not by destroying anything, not by attacking anyone. She simply removed what she was giving. That's what shifted everything. And that's something you can apply in real life. You don't have to burn bridges to take control back. You don't have to create conflict. You don't have to explain yourself to people who already showed you how they see you. Sometimes all you have to do is stop. Stop overextending. Stop fixing things that aren't yours to fix. Stop holding up situations that would fall apart if you weren't carrying them. That's where clarity comes from. And clarity changes everything. Now let's talk about Derek for a second, because there's a lesson there too. It's easy to watch a story like this and label him as the problem. But real life isn't that simple. Derek represents something a lot of people struggle with: the need for validation from where they came from. His biological mother left. That created a gap. And when she came back, that gap didn't disappear. It just became active again. That kind of emotional pull is real. But here's the part people miss. Understanding your past doesn't excuse how you treat the people who stood by you in the present. You can reconnect with where you came from without disrespecting who carried you through it. That's a choice. And Derek made his, just like Vanessa made hers. That's why this story matters, because it shows two sides of a reality people deal with every day. On one side, someone giving too much, hoping it will be enough. On the other side, someone receiving so much they stop recognizing its value. And in the middle of that, something breaks. Not loudly, but clearly. That's what makes stories like this resonate. That's why revenge stories, family drama, and real family stories continue to connect with people. Because they're not just about what happened. They're about what people finally realize. So if you're watching this and something about Vanessa's story feels familiar, pay attention to that. Not emotionally, practically. Look at your situation. Look at your role. Look at what you're giving and what you're getting back. And ask yourself if the balance makes sense. If it doesn't, you don't need permission to adjust it. You don't need agreement. You just need clarity. And once you have that, the next step becomes a lot simpler. Not easier, but clearer. That's the difference. And if this story gave you something to think about, if it made you look at your own situation a little differently, then you're exactly who this channel is for. We tell real stories here. The kind people don't always say out loud, the kind that sit under the surface of everyday life. So if you're into stories like this, real revenge stories, real family drama, and the kind of family stories that actually reflect how life works, make sure you subscribe. Because there's always more to uncover. And sometimes the story you need to hear next looks a lot like your own.